They thought she was just another clipboard officer, until the convoy stalled in the desert heat. Lieutenant Kara Dalton stood at the edge of the supply yard, her uniform sharp, her clipboard steady, her eyes scanning rows of crates with the same precision she once applied to equations at the academy. To most, she was background, another officer buried in paper trails. To her, every gallon, every crate, every timing marker was life and death, though no one else seemed to see it that way. Near the wire, the SEAL team prepped for night operations. Commander Jack Rourke, call sign Talon, checked his rifle in silence while his team ran comms checks and loaded magazines. To them, Kara was just log ops, a voice that approved requests and signed manifests. She could feel their eyes slide past her like she wasn't there. Non-combat. Paperwork, one of them muttered as he cinched down his gear. Another chuckled, "As long as the fuel's waiting for us, we're good." Kara said nothing. She only adjusted her glasses against the glare, ticking off figures on her clipboard. But her gaze lingered on the mission maps spread across the table. Terrain ridges, valley choke points, grid squares marked Sierra through Delta. She studied them longer than she should have, as though rehearsing routes no one had asked her to memorize. The convoy rolled out under a bruised sky. 3 Humvees, each carrying 5,000 liters of jet fuel in steel drums, rumbled across the desert flats. The air shimmered, heat rising like smoke. Kara rode in the lead vehicle, wedged between a driver and a corporal who kept glancing at her clipboard like it was a shield instead of a weapon. The stalling happened suddenly. The second Humvee coughed, lurched, then went dead. The third braked hard to avoid collision, its cargo sloshing. Dust swallowed them in a choking cloud. The driver swore, climbing out to inspect. When the lid of a drum came free, Kara's eyes narrowed. Wrong labeling. Wrong shipment. Aviation fuel had been replaced with diesel. The extraction bird waiting for the SEALs at midnight would never leave the ground. She climbed out, boots sinking in sand, clipboard under her arm. "This isn't an engine problem," she said sharply. "It's supply chain. The drums are misrouted. Someone pushed the wrong pallets into convoy load." The corporal shrugged. "So, we radio back. Wait for a fix." "There's no time," Kara snapped. She flipped open her map, wind tugging at its edges. "The team steps off in less than an hour. Without aviation fuel, the Blackhawk doesn't get off the pad. Their extraction burns on this convoy. We reroute, now." Her voice carried with more authority than expected. But at HQ, when her report hit the comms, skepticism was immediate. "Log ops, hold position," Colonel Briggs ordered over the net. "We'll sort the manifests in the morning. The mission proceeds as planned." Kara pressed her headset tighter. "Sir, with respect, planned extraction is already compromised. If Talon's team inserts without guaranteed exfil, they're trapped. We can divert to grid Sierra Delta and link with reserve stores. 3 Humvees, 15,000 liters capacity, will keep them fueled." Static filled the silence, then Rourke's voice cut in. Calm, barely curious. "This is Talon. You're telling me my bird doesn't fly?" "Yes, Commander," Kara answered. Her tone was precise, clipped, but not wavering. "Unless I move this convoy tonight." The pause on the line was long. She could imagine the team glancing at one another in the dim light, their faces set like stone. "Copy, log ops," Rourke finally said. "You run your convoy. We'll trust you can keep the lights on." It wasn't belief, it was resignation. But it was enough. Kara climbed back into the Humvee, heart hammering. She marked out the alternate grid square with a finger jabbed into the map. The driver gave her a look as though he'd just realized the officer with the clipboard was suddenly at the wheel of the whole operation. The convoy rolled again, engines straining, headlights carving thin beams through dust. Night pressed down like a shroud. She kept her eyes on the compass, ticking off each kilometer, calling out corrections with the same clipped precision of the SEALs on their radios. "Bearing 220. Maintain 30 kph. Sierra Delta grid in 40 minutes. Her voice was steady, betraying none of the churn beneath. She wasn't supposed to be making these calls. Logistics officers signed forms. They didn't reroute missions under their own authority. But the thought of those men moving blind into the valley without a way home hardened her resolve. By the time they reached the storage depot, her throat was dry, her hands raw from gripping the map against the wind. But the aviation fuel was there, stacked in perfect rows, untouched and waiting. She supervised every drum loaded, double-checking every label. Her eyes caught every number, every marking, until she knew, beyond doubt, that the Sealsbird would lift when it needed to. Back at HQ, the manifest update landed on Briggs's desk. He scowled but signed. Rourke's clipped acknowledgement crackled over the net. Talon copies. Extraction fuel confirmed. No thanks, no praise, just confirmation. Yet, in the silence that followed, Kara felt a subtle shift. Not full respect, not yet, but the first sliver of it. She had kept the mission alive when the plan had already begun to die, and as the base settled into midnight watch, Kara spread her maps again under a dim light, eyes running across valleys and ridges no one expected her to study. She traced the routes as if she knew trouble was already waiting in the shadows beyond. But she also knew this. When the grid went dark, she'd be ready. In the dead silence of a jammed frequency, her voice cut through like steel. The valley was a bowl of shadow, ridgelines black against a starless sky. The SEAL team moved in 2 files, boots sinking into dust, night vision scopes glowing faint green. Commander Rourke, Talon 1, walked point, his rifle steady, the rhythm of his breath locked with the team's heartbeat. Above them, nothing but silence. Below them, the promise of a hostile stronghold only a few kilometers away. Back at the forward operating base, Kara Dalton leaned over a console bathed in blue light. Her headset pressed tight, her clipboard shoved aside. Lines of satellite imagery scrolled before her, grids marked with precision. To most of the base, she was still log ops. But tonight, every word from her mouth carried weight none of them expected her to bear. Talon 1. This is log ops. You are clear to grid Sierra 7, she said, her voice calm. The reply came smooth and steady. Copy, log ops. Moving. For the first hour, everything held. Drones orbited high, feeding Kara glimpses of movement on roads, flashes of heat in the distance. She relayed bearings, watched the SEALs thread the valley like a blade slipping between ribs. But then, mid-transmission, the net fractured. Static bled through the line. Echo's uplink blinked red. One by one, signals stuttered, then died. Kara's console went dark except for a single blinking cursor. Comms blackout, the tech beside her muttered. They're blind. Kara's jaw tightened. Blind meant trapped. Blind meant dead. She reached for the auxiliary feed, rerouting through the logistics drone array. Small, unarmed craft meant to survey roads and supplies, but their optics were still live. With practiced fingers, she stole their signals, patching them into her console, forcing the grainy feed onto her screens. Heat signatures bloomed. Roads twisted into shapes only she could read. Her voice slid back into the silence. Talon 1. This is log ops. Switch to backup, frequency Charlie 2. Can you copy? The pause was long enough for her stomach to knot. Then, copy, log ops. Reading you faint, she exhaled, steadying herself. Maintain heading 240. 5 clicks to fallback LZ. Rourke's voice cut sharper this time. You're running my nav now? Unless you'd prefer silence, Commander, Kara said. Her tone held. She didn't flinch. The team shifted course under her guidance, the valley swallowing their outlines. For a moment, Kara felt control return. But then the midpoint struck. Through the drone feed, she saw it. Heat blooms along the convoy road. Not supplies, not allies. Enemy forces, nested in the very route she had secured earlier that evening. The ambush detonated in silence, but her screen painted it in light. Tracer arcs cracking through night, bursts that rippled like lightning. On the net, voices surged. Contact! Contact. Echo is pinned. Rounds left, 1 mag. Kara froze for half a heartbeat, her mind racing. The route she'd fought to protect was gone. If they pushed forward, the SEALs would be cut down. If they retreated, extraction closed in minutes. Her eyes flicked to the maps she'd studied in secret the night before. Ridges, goat tracks, dry riverbeds carved into stone, routes no one else had marked because they weren't meant for vehicles, only for memory. She swallowed once, then keyed the net. Talon 1. This is log OPS, break contact. Divert northwest to grid Sierra Delta 9er. You have 2 mics to move. Rourke's reply came rough with disbelief. That's uncharted. We don't have eyes there. You have mine, Kara said, her voice flat as steel. For a beat, silence stretched. Then, copy. Moving. The SEALs broke hard, smoke trailing their escape. Enemy tracers cracked, green arcs slashing the night. Kara guided them step by step, her voice constant, her bearings exact. She rerouted drones, pushing them lower, forcing their cameras to sweep terrain she only half believed in herself. Every correction was a gamble, every pause a chance for death to close in. 5 clicks shrank to 3. The fallback LZ blinked on her screen like a fading heartbeat. She called corrections in meters, her voice cutting over static. Hold 270, keep low. 2 mics left. Rourke's voice answered, breath ragged but steady. Copy, log ops, keep us alive. The words jolted her. Not dismissive, not mocking. Trust in its rawest form. She pressed her hands against the console, anchoring herself in that weight. The team burst free of the choke point, tracers falling behind, their silhouettes crawling toward the exfil grid. The valley was still alive with fire, but Kara had pulled them into open ground. Extraction was no longer a dream. It was possible. When the comms steadied, Kara sagged against her chair, pulse hammering. She had broken every protocol, stolen feeds, rerouted drones, commanded men who had never once seen her as more than a paper trail. And yet, they lived. Across the net, Rourke's voice came quiet but clear. Talon to log ops. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. And for the first time, Kara felt the call sign she didn't yet own hovering like a shadow over the radio waves. She had guided them out of darkness once, but the storm still gathered ahead, where only fire would decide if she rose or fell. She had no rifle, no armor, only her voice, and it carried them out of the fire. The valley was a trap. Enemy forces surged from the ridgelines, shadows spilling downhill under a starless sky. The SEALs were pinned, low on ammo, their fallback blocked. Echo's comms sputtered with static. Shade's sniper position was nearly overrun. At headquarters, Kara Dalton's headset was slick with sweat, her hands locked over the map overlays she had memorized 100 times before. Command hesitated, arguing procedures. Kara tuned them out. She heard the gunfire, the strain in every breath transmitted across the net. Her pulse slowed, steadying, as if the chaos outside funneled into her calm center. This is Talon 1. We are pinned, requesting immediate fire support. Her voice cut back, quiet but firm. Negative, Talon 1. You won't last 2 mics for air support. Reroute fire from Shade. Grid November Foxtrot 7. Hold position. A pause. Then Rourke's voice, rough with disbelief. Roger, log ops. Shifting. Shade answered with 2 muffled cracks, precise, controlled. Enemy advance slowed, but it wasn't enough. Kara saw the larger pattern unfolding on her screen. If they stayed, they would be swallowed whole. She keyed in fast, overriding the circuit. Echo, this is log ops. Break east, 3 clicks, ridge spine. I'll clear you a corridor. Move now. Echo, acknowledged, moving. She pulled up drone feeds, tiny, whirring eyes. She had no clearance to task for combat. With one command, she swept their infrared cones over the valley, patching blind gaps in Echo's retreat. She called distances like lifelines. 200 meters, left flank, hot. Push north-northeast. You're clear past that ravine. Tracer fire arced the night, green and red bolts cracking air with whip-like violence. Kara's chest tightened. She remembered each map she had studied, the old fuel routes, the forgotten supply track along a dry wash. She knew what had to happen. Convoy 2, she said, switching channels. Divert fuel trucks to coordinate Lima Tango 6. Prep for dump and detonation on my mark. The convoy commander stammered. Ma'am, that's half our reserve. That's an order. Move. On the ridge, Shade's rifle thudded again, suppressing fire over Echo's sprint. Rourke's breathing rasped in her ear. This is Talon 1. We're moving, but we're out of time, she whispered to herself before pressing transmit. Not out of time. Not yet. Her plan was reckless. Fuel-air ignition, improvised. But if it worked, it would blind the valley, burn oxygen, and scatter the enemy long enough for the SEALs to break contact. She set the convoy in place. Coordinates locked. All teams, brace. Fireball inbound. Mark in 10, 9, 8. She felt every second drag like an eternity. SEALs sprinting through shadow. Enemies closing in. The convoy commander's voice tight, awaiting release. 3, 2, 1, ignite. The desert roared. Fuel drums erupted in a towering bloom of fire and pressure, shockwaves rattling comms. For an instant, night became day. Enemy lines faltered, cries drowned in the thunder. Echo stumbled but pushed forward, lungs burning. Talon team leapt from cover, using the chaos as shield. Kara clenched the edge of her console, headset vibrating with feedback. Then she heard it, Rourke's voice, raw with awe. This is Talon 1. Corridor is open. We're moving to extraction. Command finally cut through, panicked, demanding to know who authorized the strike. Kara ignored them. Her focus was on the ridge, the men and women depending on her. Shade's last shots rang like punctuation marks. Suppressed, precise, each one covering a retreating teammate. Kara guided them with steady bearings. 2 clicks to LZ. Stay low. You're under 2 mics. She heard the rotor wash before she saw the uplink flare on her screen. The evac bird was inbound, streaks of light marking the drop. The SEALs broke from the ridge, ragged silhouettes against the inferno behind them. Rourke's voice came again, steadier now. This is Talon 1. Log, Opes. No, this is Iron Hawk. You just saved our lives. For a heartbeat, Kara froze. The call sign settled like a crown she had not asked for, forged in fire. She swallowed hard. Copy that, Talon 1. Iron Hawk out. The last of the SEALs boarded, rotors lifting them clear of the valley. Kara sat back, headset pressing into her skull, heart hammering in silence. She had defied protocol, risked everything, but they were alive. Shade, Echo, Rourke, all of them. Behind her, Briggs stood wordless, eyes fixed on the console glow. He understood now. Not uniform, not title. Resolve. That was the iron that carried them through. The chopper banked east, flares cutting across the night sky, their arc mirrored in Kara's steady gaze. The battle was over, but the name had been born. And from that night forward, the SEALs would never call her just logistics again.